Yo, so Electro MC is the hidden gem of the Inazuma update. Everyone's focused on Ayaka right now, but let me tell you, this character is nuts. They're the best battery currently in the game because of their ability to force feed your carry energy, like a lot of energy. They work super well with superconduct teams because they easily enable the reaction if you have any cryo users. Overall, Electro MC is just a super strong free-to-play unit. You should absolutely build them if you're using any characters with high energy cost bursts. So after playing around with Electro MC for a few days, I'm going to tell you guys exactly how Electro MC works and how to best build them. Stick around for extra tips and team comps though. So Electro MC functions as an external charger, kind of like what you get for your phone. Once you have them fully charged up, you can use their elemental burst to accelerate your carry's energy gain by a ton. So just so nobody's confused, I'm going to quickly tell you guys how to best play Traveler, how to use their elemental burst and skill. So first off, Traveler's elemental skill is a move that does a little bit of damage, but it sends out 3 attacks in a cone shape. And whenever one of these attacks hits an enemy, it creates an abundance amulet. At Constellation 0, you can have up to a max of 2 abundance amulets on the field, and at Constellation 1, you can have 3. So because a lot of people don't understand what these are, abundance amulets are basically elemental particles that charge your energy when you pick them up, except they stay out for about 15 seconds. So you can essentially leave energy hanging out on the field for that time to pick up. When a character picks up the amulet, they also get a buff to their energy recharge for a short amount of time, so you should use this skill right before you use Traveler's elemental burst. The increase to energy recharge doesn't actually activate until you pick up the amulet, so they can sit out on the field for 15 seconds and you'll be totally fine. Keep in mind though that casting this again will just reset the amulets that are already on the field and make them disappear and replace them with the new ones. So that means if you're going to use something like Sacrificial Sword, you will have to pick up those amulets before you use it again if you want to get the most value out of it, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, Electro Traveler's burst actually works similar to Xingqiu. So what it's going to do is make it so every time you attack, lightning will strike down and hit enemies. It's going to be a really small AoE. It'll basically only hit multiple enemies if they're really clumped up. And the damage on this isn't super great, but we can talk about how to make that a little bit better. Now, there's an internal cooldown on the lightning strike of about half a second, so it means that you can attack really fast with it, and anytime you hit an enemy with this active, you're going to gain energy. That might not sound like much, but the amount of energy you're gaining per hit is pretty significant. So at talent level 7, that's when you start getting 1 energy per hit of lightning, and unfortunately, based on my testing, I found out that it doesn't matter if you hit multiple enemies with the lightning, it is still 1 energy per hit of lightning. So before we go ahead and move on to the build guide part of this, I do want to reiterate one more time, you want to make sure that you use your E before your Q, because the duration of your energy regeneration starts immediately, but the energy recharge buff you get from the amulets on the ground does not start until you pick them up. So essentially, you'll want to use your E, Q, switch to your other character, start swinging and pick up those amulets on the way, so that way you're getting a ton of energy. So now that you know how to play Electro Traveler, I'm going to tell you how to build them and clear up some misconceptions. So right off the bat, one common misconception that I've heard is that people are saying Electro Traveler is a DPS. Obviously, you can play Traveler how you want, but they are most optimal in the support position because of the low damage multipliers and high energy gain. Ultimately, you want to build Electro Traveler as a battery. The reason for this is because the Electro Traveler is the best battery in the game currently for carries, and Electro Traveler's multipliers are just really low in general. Just for example, Beidou has way better Electro multipliers on her Q by like a pretty significant amount, and her Q jumps from person to person if you have a constellation for her. So the most optimal position for Electro Traveler will be in the support or battery position, and that's the build we're going to be looking at today. So first things first, Emblem of Severed Fate is the best in slot for Electro Traveler because it gives you energy recharge with the 2-piece set, and the 4-piece set gives you more damage on your elemental burst based off of your energy recharge that you have. Which brings us to the argument of attack percent versus energy recharge. So for the best build, you're actually going to run energy recharge, electro damage, and crit circlet. And the reason you're choosing to run energy recharge versus attack percent is really simple. It's actually uptime. Electro Traveler has the highest cost burst possible, which is an 80 cost burst, and the reason that we want to run energy recharge is to make it so Electro Traveler can have as much uptime as possible. Electro Traveler is really similar to Xingqiu with an 80 cost elemental burst and a 20-second cooldown, so you want to build Electro Traveler like you would build Xingqiu, which is like a DPS but with energy recharge. Now that's not to say attack percent is useless. Actually, I would say attack percent is better if you can get enough energy recharge on your substats to make it worth running attack percent. However, getting those substats can be really tough, and crit substats are going to do you better than energy recharge. So the amount of energy recharge you want to go for on your Electro Traveler at the end of the day is around 240%. And the reason you want to go for that much energy recharge is because Electro Traveler's E actually only produces 1 particle, so you want that particle to generate more energy, and in addition to that, it causes our elemental burst to do 60% more damage total, which is a higher multiplier than running something like Thundering Fury and Noblesse, and that higher multiplier will help us compensate for running energy recharge over attack percent. But going back to our point about uptime, the reason that we want energy recharge is so that we can use our elemental burst as much as possible, because our elemental burst charges the rest of our team's elemental burst. So for those reasons, Emblem of Severed Fate is going to be the best in slot set. If you do have 2-piece Noblesse, 2-piece Thundering Fury, you can totally use it on Traveler. It's just not going to be as efficient as using Emblem of Severed Fate. One last set I wanted to talk about was actually Thundering Fury, the 4-piece set, because a lot of misconceptions have been occurring in the comment section of my last video. Basically, the argument is that Thundering Fury lowers your cooldown and helps you get more uptime on your Q and your E. But the problem with 4-piece Thundering Fury is that you actually have to be on the field for that effect to trigger. So even if you're reacting with Electro, you're not going to be getting the cooldown reduction on your E unless Electro MC is the one in play, which is what you're trying to avoid. So for that reason, I can't recommend 4-piece Thundering Fury. And on your substats, you do want to go for crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent. Energy recharge is always a plus, but you only need about 240% energy recharge on your Traveler. If you're in early game and you can't reach that number, don't worry about it. Just start stacking up energy recharge as much as you can. 240% is where you feel really comfy. So now that we've talked about builds, we can actually take a look at weapons. We will be going over free-to-play weapons, but I will be talking about some gacha weapons as well, because those do tend to be better. But anyways, the number one sword that I can recommend to you for Electro Traveler is Sacrificial Sword. Now, I did mention earlier that your second E will overwrite your first E's amulets that are on the ground, but to get around that, you can use Traveler's E, pick up the amulets on Traveler, and then use E again and swap to the next character to pick up the amulets. And what that's going to do is give the Traveler an extra bank of energy as you swap off. So it's not going to actually benefit your carry as much, however, it will give Traveler more uptime. If you don't have Sacrificial Sword, but you do have Favonius Sword, you can still get particles when your character is off the field as long as you crit. So if you crit with Electro Traveler with Favonius Sword out, you're going to generate some particles, and that'll be nice. And between the two of these swords, you can kind of pick and choose how you want to play it, but I like Sacrificial Sword a little bit better personally because of the extra energy that Traveler gets. Skyward Blade, the 5-star, is a good weapon, but it better serves characters like Bennett if you're choosing between the two. The energy you gain from Favonius or Sacrificial Sword is going to matter more in the long run. Now, if you're free to play, the new craftable sword from Inazuma is actually really good, and I'll spare you my awful pronunciation, but the reason it's really good is because its passive persists through swaps. If you don't know what its passive does, basically once you use your elemental skill, you get a stack, and then when you use your Q, you gain back energy based on how many stacks you had. So it won't give you as much energy as an energy recharge sword, but it'll give you slightly more damage and still kind of compensate a little bit. The tough thing while building Electro MC for damage is that even with cracked out weapons, the multiplier on elemental burst is so low that it doesn't really matter that much, which is why all in all, most energy recharge swords will just work. Skyrider is another good one for early game free-to-play players, but try and craft the new 4-star when you can. So now that we've talked about weapons, I just want to talk about a couple team tips and things that you can do to amplify your gameplay. These have all been things that I've found super fun when messing around with Electro Traveler, and so you should definitely give them a try. The first one I want to talk about is the Mega Battery team. So historically, Fischl has always been a really great battery for most teams. There used to be a turbo bug, but still, even without turbo, Fischl is still really good at generating energy. So what I like to do is run 80 cost carries and Electro MC and Fischl, and what that essentially is going to do is give me high cost on elemental burst, but an absurd amount of battery to compensate for it. So you're going to get Electro Resonance, and Fischl's going to be generating energy as long as Oz is on the field, and Electro MC is going to keep trying to generate energy for your carries at all times. And what that'll let you do is spam Eula's Q on cooldown, spam Noelle's Q on cooldown. It'll let you spam Xiao's Q on cooldown. They're really, really awesome together. I love the Mega Battery team. You can actually get a similar effect with Beidou too, though Beidou's not as good of a battery as Fischl. You can still use her for the energy bonus that you're going to get with Elemental Resonance, and Beidou helps you output a ton of extra damage as well, which is the one thing that Electro MC is lacking, is extra damage. I'd also recommend Electro MC for your team if you're using someone like Razor and Diona together in a team, so that way you can get Super Conduct off and you can battery Razor's Q, so Razor's always able to attack faster. As just another general tip for Electro MC users, if you have an Elemental Burst up on your carry and you have Elemental Skill active on your Traveler, you can go ahead and use your Elemental Skill on Traveler, use your character's Elemental Burst, that's your carry, and then pick up the amulets on the ground, so that way you automatically have some of that energy back after using your burst, and that's going to really help you generate more energy over time and get your Elemental Burst rolling. Whew, that was a lot of stuff, and I haven't made a guide in a while. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the guide. I hope that your Electro Traveler is awesome and built, and I hope that you guys are loving Inazuma. Again, take your time, folks. Revel in the nostalgia of when we used to log in and Mondstadt at AR16 and slowly do our commissions, and we had no idea what we were doing at all. Enjoy your time in Inazuma, everyone. Make sure to follow on Twitch if you're not already at twitch.tv/Braxophone. We do go live. We do things like account reviews, you laugh, you lose. We do tier lists, all sorts of fun, different stuff. And if you've enjoyed the guide, make sure to subscribe down below. It really helps me out. Only about 8% of you guys who are watching are subscribed right now. It's my goal to hit 50K soon, and I'd love if you guys were a part of that. Also, I haven't done a good job of advertising YouTube members, but that's a thing. If you click the join link down below, you can see all the awesome perks for becoming a member. And yeah, thank you everyone. Let me know down in the comments what you think about Electro Traveler. I will see you guys later.